This is the back squat. With the back squat, the first thing we want to do is get under the bar into this lovely quarter squat position. We then bring our hands as close together as we can, push our elbows back, and this is going to create the shelf of muscle with which we put the bar onto. From here, we want to unrack the bar by squatting out of the rack. We take 3 steps back. On our third step, we set our stance. Squatting stances can be varied, but for starting out, what we want to do is just have our feet just outside of our hips with a little bit of foot turnout. We want to breathe deep into the stomach, and then we want to squat down, driving the knees forward and keeping the hips tight. We are squatting as deep as we can, comfortably and without pain. Make sure you're in control throughout the whole movement, controlling it on the way down before we push through the floor and stand up nice and straight. When you're done, you're just going to walk the weight back into the rack, and then you're going to rest it nice and controlled into the J-hooks. Cool, so that's a really good overview on how to do the high bar back squat. I'm just going to talk to you about troubleshooting some issues you might come across. If you are struggling to hit your squat depth, there's a few things that are potentially going on. One of the main things is that you might just not have a lot of mobility in your hips or your ankle joint. If you're struggling with your hips, one thing you can try is to either have a little bit of a wider squat stance, or to, as you're coming down, actually think to drive your knees out towards either wall. So if I'm coming down and I'm driving my knees out, that's going to create a little bit more space in my hips, versus coming super narrow, I run into my hips really quickly. So you can kind of see that from the side. I run into my hips really quickly, versus coming out nice and wide and also driving my knees out. I actually end up creating a lot more space in my hips. The other thing is, if your ankle mobility is not quite there, that's just something you kind of have to work on independently of the squat, or as you're squatting and you're consistent with it, that in itself will actually start to open up the ankles a little bit. So if I drive my knee forward and this heel starts to really pick up off the ground before I can actually get my knee nice and far over the toes, that's an indicator that my ankle mobility isn't quite there for me to get a nice and deep squat.